Hi, welcome back. On this episode, we're going to change the spark plugs and we're going to do a compression test. Don't forget to click the subscribe button and click the notification button so you don't miss anything. Check me out on Instagram at Clargo Garage. Let's get started. So you might notice I already have the center console, tank, and the seat off of the bike already. In a previous video, I removed all that stuff step by step. I haven't uploaded that video yet, so I'm not sure what episode it's going to be, but I will, in the description of the video, post what episode it is so you can go back and refer to how to pull all that stuff apart. So the first thing we're going to do here, we're going to blow out where our spark plugs all go with compressed air to make sure that there's no contaminants. There's 4 spark plugs on this bike. On the back cylinder, which is the number 1 cylinder, there's one right here on the left side of the bike, and then another one right there on the right side. And then on the front cylinder, staying on the right side, there's one more spark plug there towards the front, and the 4th spark plug is on the left side at the front. You do need to pull your tank off to be able to get to all the spark plugs. You can kind of get to the 2 on one side, but the other 2, it's impossible to get to. You got to pull the tank right off. And the way this motor works, it's only a V-twin, so there's only 2 cylinders on the bike, but there's 4 plugs. Both plugs fire at the same time off the same coil. It just gives you a better, cleaner burn. So I'm going to pull the 2 plugs on the left side of the motor out of the bike to get ready to do our compression test. But before I do that, I'm going to blow everything out with compressed air. So I put my safety glasses on. I sprayed the compressed air around the spark plugs. This way, if there's any road grime or dirt or rocks or anything, when I pull the spark plugs out, there's less chance of any contaminants getting in the cylinder. Where if you have a lot of road debris built up around your plugs, there's a good chance that some of that debris might fall into your cylinder, which could score it and take out your motor if too much stuff gets in. So it's a pretty good idea to spray it, blow it out. It makes a difference. Gives you that little extra safety. So I'm just going to pull the plug wires off on this side. And I'm actually going to pull them off on the back side too. This way, when I'm trying to start the bike, or when I'm rolling it over to do a compression test, it's not trying to fire the bike at the same time. And now I'm just going to use the spark plug tool that comes with the bike and a 14mm wrench. There's one plug out. It looks pretty good. See if we can get it to focus. It's a nice color, just kind of a slight golden brown. So things are running pretty good, pretty clean. And now we're going to pull the plug out of the front cylinder. And we're going to compare colors on them as well. Make sure that both cylinders are running the same, which they should be. It's a single carburetor on these bikes, so they should be getting the same air-fuel mixture. If they're a different color, then it could be a good chance that either your valves need to be adjusted or you need to rebuild your engine. One cylinder is sucking more fuel and air than the other one. That looks pretty good as well. Looks like it's been running just slightly hotter than the other cylinder. But it looks pretty good. So this is the compression tester that I have, that I like to use. It has a pretty good assortment of different fittings for different style plug holes. So I'm going to screw the adapter on. And then I'm going to screw in a cylinder. I'm going to start with the back cylinder first, which is the number 1 cylinder. So you just want to put it in snug. And then we're going to put our gauge on. So our minimum compression is around 140 psi, our max is 199, and our standard where we want it to be around is around 170. So we're going to check and see how it is. Last time I did a compression test on here, it's around 160, 165, which is pretty good. So we'll see what we have. So your gauge, it just plugs on like an airline fitting. We'll put that there so you can see somewhat. And now we're going to turn the key on. We're going to open the throttle up all the way and then roll it over with the throttle wide open. It opens the butterfly up in the carburetor, allowing the carburetor to suck more air, which gives you a better compression reading, which is how the manual specifies. Alright, so we're going to turn the key on, throttle wide open, and we got about 155 there. We're going to lead the pressure. We'll do it one more time. Looks good. Lead the pressure. The battery is a little bit tired. I haven't had it out yet this year to get a good charge on it. So it's going to give me a little bit lower reading because it's not rolling over as fast as it should. So around 100, 155, I'm pretty happy with that. I will recheck it again after a few rides are on it, just to double check, because it should be reading around 165, 170. Would make me a little happier. Same thing, throttle wide open. About the same, 150, 155. That's 160. So as you can see, it's pretty good. Gauge on it. So it's about 160 psi. Alright, now we're just going to spin it out. So we know we're still around 160 pounds, so we don't got to worry about getting into our valves or anything. And when I put new plugs in, usually I'll check the plugs after a few rides, get like 1,000, 2,000 kilometers on it. Then if I have free time, I'll pull them out, check them, make sure things are still running good and everything looks good. Alright, I'm going to put some new plugs in. I run the DPRE or 7EA-9 plugs, NGK. I usually buy them in the individual packages instead of these twin packs. I usually get them in the single packages right from Yamaha. If you want to get them with the blue writing on them, those are the good ones. These ones have the blue writing too, but I've always been told that when you buy the individual spark plugs that they're a higher quality than ones that come in 2 or 4 packs. Not sure if it's true or not, but that's usually what I try to do. I bought these, I'm not really sure when. I was doing some cleaning and found them, so I'm just going to throw them in since I already have them. And I always make sure too that they're the same plug as the other one. So the spark plug gap should be 0.8 to 0.9 millimeter, or 0.031 to 0.35 of an inch. So I usually just use the millimeter. So I'm going to use a feeler gauge set at 0.85. So it's right in the middle. I don't have the actual spark plug feeler gauges here, so I'm just going to use my regular feeler gauges. So I'm using a 0.0 or 0.45 and 0.4 millimeter, which gives me my 0.85. And I'm just going to slip them in like that, get focus, like so. They fit in slightly snug, the gap's good, so we can throw that plug in. If you have the proper feeler gauges for doing your spark plugs, you can actually bend that tab up or down if you need to. So I would end up having to use a pair of pliers or something to bend this. And one other thing to check when you're putting spark plugs in, there's the porcelain, the white part, right above the electrode. So it's like your electrode with your gap, and then there's the white porcelain that goes into underneath the threads. Always check and make sure that that's not broke free. I had one time I pulled the plugs out, and when I went to go put the plug in, I heard and kind of felt something, and it was actually that white porcelain falling and blocking the gap, so that plug was doing nothing. Since this has 4 plugs on the bike, 2 per cylinder, I didn't know I had a bad plug, and the plugs were pretty new actually. So I always just put them upside down like that, kind of give them a bit of a shake, and just make sure that my gap is still there, that the porcelain hasn't fallen down. And then when you're putting new plugs in, you have to compress the compression ring on them. So you usually go from snug or from finger tight, you snug it up about a quarter turn. I find it's easiest to put them back in using your spark plug wrench that comes with the bike, because it's good for getting down in the hole. You just screw it in. And you make sure it's snug, nice and tight, and that one's good. And it's not a bad idea after a couple thousand kilometers or less to just double check them, make sure they're tight at the very least, but it's never a bad idea to pull them out and just make sure that they're a good color and things are running properly. On these bikes, if you're not sure what your gap is supposed to be, and behind the right cover and the left cover by your motor, these guys right here, this one and this one, there is information about the motorcycle there, like your gap, tire pressures, and all that kind of stuff. And your owner's manual should also have all the information that you need. And you want to make sure that you don't over tighten and strip the cylinder head, as that's a bit of an ordeal. You got to put a Healy coil in or replace the head. And now I can remove the second set of plugs. This one's probably the hardest plug to get to. It's buried in there pretty deep. Even with the tank off, it's still a bit of a pain. And you don't have to have your bike up on a stand when you do this. I just have it up on the stand because I was doing other stuff to the bike. Alright, this is a good example. This plug here, I can't get my feeler gauge in. It's too tight. So I'm just going to take a small little tweaker screwdriver, since I don't have the proper feeler gauge here. I'm just going to kind of put it in from behind, and I'm just going to very gently give it a turn, open it up just a little bit, and then recheck. I can use just a little bit more, so I'll open it up a little bit more. And there we go. I can get my feeler gauge in. I went just slightly too far, so I just used the bottom. A little bit of pressure. And then double check again. And perfect, we got it fitting just slightly snug, so it's right where we want it. So now we can slip that one in as well. Alright, and now that one's done. Our next step is to put the plug wires back on, but I like to put some dielectric grease with them. That's just what I use, just regular dielectric grease. It just helps to get a little better connection, and it helps with corrosion and that kind of stuff. So I just kind of squeeze the tube to get a little bit on the end like that, and then I just kind of dab the top of the plugs, and then when I slide the plug wires on, I know I got some dielectric grease right where I want it, and it helps for better connection, better spark. And now we slide our plug wires back on. You also want to make sure that you don't get the plug wires mixed up with what cylinder they go to. And I keep them on the same size that they came from, even though it shouldn't matter. On here it's pretty hard to mix them up, but on something else, like if you're working on a car or something, it'd be a lot easier to mix up plug wires. So you always want to be cautious of that. And then it's a good idea when you slip them on to kind of make sure they go on. You can kind of hear it too. So I'll try to bring you closer and see if you can hear. Not sure if you're able to kind of hear it slipping on. And the same thing on this side. Alright, and that is it. So we got our compression test done, we got new plugs installed, dielectric grease on them. Our next step is to slip the tank and the console on in the seat. I'm going to do that in another video. So don't forget to tune in for that. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and click the notification button. Check me out on Instagram at Clargo Garage. Thanks for watching. Have a great night.